reason we have this immigration problem, and I don't mean the one that Donald Trump defines as a problem or that others define as a problem on the far right who are reactionary, Minutemen at the border. I'm talking about the reason we have a narrative problem around immigration and the reason we have such vitriol aimed at folks coming across the border. But keep in mind, only one border, right? The Minutemen do not camp out in boats off the coast of Nova Scotia, shooting at those crafty Canadians as they sneak into our country to take advantage of our superior health care. They don't do that. It's just down there at that other border, which I beg to remind you is an artificial border created at the outcome of a war, which was a war of aggression started on false pretense by this country. Not what they taught us in 8th grade, but now that is what happened. So really, folks are coming home. Can I get an amen? People are coming home. Right. They're coming home. They're coming home. And their families were here a long time before the vast majority of ours, and yet we tell them that they don't belong. Very interesting. The reason this is even possible, though, is because of the narrative we've told about how we, and now I'm talking about those of us of European descent, because black folks know how they got here. Right? A lot of Asian folk know how they got here. A lot of folks were brought over, particularly Chinese folk, to work the railroads, didn't care how many of them died. Right? Indigenous folks know how they got here. Right? But white folks have told a fiction. Right? White folks' story has basically been this: our people came for liberty and freedom. We came for principles like that. Those people are just coming for stuff. Right? That's what we say in so many words. We came for principles, they're coming for stuff. Let's clear this up. We did not come for liberty and freedom. And I know this because if we had come for liberty and freedom, we would have established liberty and freedom. And I don't just mean with regard to people of color, I mean each other. Like, white folks spent a lot of time in the colonies just trying to figure out who was the bigger witch, right? Like, we just would kill each other. It wasn't like one big happy white family. It was just, you're not a good enough Christian. No, you're not a good enough Christian. No, you're not a good enough Christian. Now I'm going to drown you because you're a warlock. I mean, that was the kind of, like, in a nutshell, that was the colonial experience. So that was not Schoolhouse Rock, right? Yeah, right? So we didn't establish liberty and freedom even vis-a-vis one another. Let's be honest, we came for stuff. We came for stuff like opportunity, stuff like land, stuff like the ability to survive because things weren't working back home. Like, we need to be honest about, like, our people were the losers of Europe. And I don't mean that, I'm not trying to be judgmental or harsh, I'm just being honest. Like when Donald Trump says Mexico's not sending their best, okay, you think England sent their best? The hell? Like, y'all like that? Look, the people say, my family came over on the Mayflower. All right, shh. Why are you bragging, Buttercup? That is not... I don't know who was on the Mayflower, but I know who wasn't. The king. The king was not on the Mayflower. Nobody the king wanted to keep around was on the Mayflower. But we have this fictional narrative. It's almost like we believe sometime around 1642 there was a British father somewhere in England that got his family together around the fireplace in the morning and said, all right, here's the thing. I know we're doing pretty well. We got this big castle. We got all this gold. I know, it's brilliant, right? It's fantastic. We were at the King's Palace last week. Kids, you remember you played with his children out in the garden. Wasn't that great? Yeah, I know, it was amazing, wasn't it? It was great. Listen, that's all fine and good, but Daddy has an idea. My idea is as follows. Keep up, please, keep up. Gather all your things. Not all of your things. We have a lot of things because we're doing really well. We're rich. We're powerful. Just gather up like a basket full of stuff, and we are going to get on a big boat. And by that, I mean a rickety old ship. Like, I don't even know if it's seaworthy. Like, it might sink. We might drown, get eaten by sharks, get robbed by pirates, get scurvy, die a horrible, miserable death on the open ocean. However, and this is the important part, it will be an adventure. So what do you say? That didn't happen, right? The winners didn't get on the boat. The winners had no reason to leave. And you know what? There's no shame in that. There's no shame at all in having been the losers. In fact, let me tell you something. There's something quite beautiful about the losers saying, we're done with losing and we're going to rebel against that and try to carve out a new life. But you know what? It's every bit as beautiful when folks in Mexico do it, and Guatemala do it, and Sri Lanka do it, and Vietnam do it, and Nigeria do it. And do any of us actually believe that if our family's countries of origin had been contiguous to the United States, that they wouldn't have come undocumented? Like, do we think my great-grandfather, who came as a Jewish immigrant from Russia in the early 1900s, like if Russia had been where Mexico is, do we actually want to believe that he would have said, well, I would love to be able to feed my family and keep them from dying, but there are these laws? No. He would have done what he had to do. So this whole thing about documented and undocumented is this artificial narrative too. First of all, who's documented and who's not is the result of laws passed by people in power. It has nothing to do with inherent morality or ethics. It has to do with power, straight power relationships. And any of our families would have done the same thing to keep our families alive, right? But if we're not willing to critique that narrative, we can't see ourselves in them, and we can't see them in us, or they and we. Once again, wasn't a good student. It's a grammar thing, but either one will work.